G'day and welcome to the Spearo podcast, the show where we interview spearfishing experts, authorities and characters from all around the world. To become a better Spearo, come and join our spearfishing community at noobspearo.com. G'day guys, today we're speaking with 7-time Australian spearfishing champion Ian Puckeridge. He's got over 40 years experience. He's a mad comp diver. He's won the Australian and New Zealand titles. Yep. He's dived all over the world. And now it looks like his son is going to take over the reins. And he's also got, I think, world record job fish. Yeah. I think his son got, which is a massive fish.
Yeah, it's an awesome video too for that on YouTube. We should link that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've followed Ian for quite a while, and a lot of his posts have helped me with my diving.
I'll tell you what, I like the 83 kilo dogtooth tuna with a pranger as well. That's the crazy interview.
Awesome. All right, guys, stay tuned.
I wanted to share awesome experiences that you can have when you are in the water, and that's why I started spearfishing.
I just clamped down on the reel and got drugged down to about 50 feet, and I'd never had a battle like that before in my life.
So when you're learning where to hunt and find fish, they're the hot spots. It's where fish want to be.
Don't overcomplicate your gear. Don't go diving dressed up like a Christmas tree.
I actually started off in stubbies with a bloody belt with a pig knife on it.
And they've seen this big fin break the surface, roll into the water, look down, here's this nice big great white.
Once your face hits the water and you feel relaxed and all the other stresses of life seem to disappear.
It's a whole new world and it's mysterious, it's magical.
Beats the shit out of knitting anyway.
Oh yeah.
G'day guys, some massive news for the spearfishing community. Recently, as Adreno opens their third store in Melbourne, a massive 1,300 square metre store full of spearing, freediving, scuba, snorkeling gear and even surfing weddies from the top brands. The grand opening is this Saturday. We'll see $25,000 of giveaways, including 150 gift bags valued at $150 each for the first customers, a $1,000 shopping spree for one lucky person who lines up before the doors open, and a table full of prizes from wetsuits to fins and spear guns. There'll also be a free sausage sizzle and heaps of deals. Head to the Adreno Spearfishing Facebook page for more info and enjoy the celebrations.
So g'day Noob Spearo community. Joining us today from Bondi is Ian Puckeridge. He's bilingual. He speaks fluent Kiwi, having grown up on Bondi. He's also he's a multiple Australian champ, 7 times I believe. He's also won the New Zealand champs once. He spent more than 20 years representing Australia in the world champs. He's also involved with some of the foundational divers in this country with organisations like the Diggers Club. So welcome to the show, Ian. Awesome to have you with us.
Thanks, guys.
So if we could just get started with where you got started spearfishing, Ian. How long have you been spearfishing, and what were some of those first experiences like for you?
Well, yeah, I've been spearfishing for at least 40 years. I've lived at Bondi my whole life, so yeah, when I started it was around Bondi, but with not a lot of instruction when I first started. You know, there was no social media and there were no magazines really in those days, just the ones in the clubs. So, I used to just jump off the rocks and I'd find big fish and with my wheat rubber on my sea hornet and knock scales off big dewies and things like that.
Yeah.
So, it was a pretty slow learning curve for me. When a mate of mine, Adam Smith, when he's a little bit older than me, when he first started uni, he started playing underwater hockey at uni, New South Wales Uni, with all the spearfishermen, all the Sydney spearfishermen in those days used to play underwater hockey in winter to try and keep fit. And then I started going in spearfishing comps and sort of progressed from there.
Okay. So you mentioned you were in a club. So was that the Diggers Club?
No. So the spearfishing club I'm in is the San Souci Dolphins. There was a club at the Diggers at Bondi, but the Diggers has now been knocked down. That was Ron Taylor and all those guys were in that spearfishing club. There were lots of clubs in Sydney in sort of the 60s into the 70s, and it was sort of late 70s when that spearfishing club from Bondi closed down. So, there's really only 4 Sydney clubs that compete against each other. So San Souci Dolphins, St George, Mossman Whalers and North Shore.
Okay.
And by the time I started, they were really the only 4 left, and they're still going now. So, the closest one to me at the time was San Souci. I've been with those guys ever since.
How old were you before you started taking some wins in the clubs? Like, how old were you when you first started winning comps?
Probably about 20. You know, there's Element Shield competition, which is they have a competition first Sunday of each month in Sydney, different location each time. The comps used to go for 4 hours, and they're just boat comps. I think the first year I went in, you know, you get up to 100 divers turn up to a monthly competition.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
Year I probably came, 30th or 40th the first year, and then the following year I won it.
That's a big improvement.
Yeah, I picked it up reasonably quick, and I came from a fishing background, and I used to surf a lot. So whenever it was rough, I'd be surfing, and when it was calm, I'd go diving. So I knew a lot of the sort of Sydney area reasonably well, and yeah, once I sort of worked out the format of the competitions with species and things like that, I got it together fairly quick.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So that sounds like a pretty significant improvement, like from kind of like with 100 guys going from 40 to taking it out the next year. What moved the needle for you? Did you have some good mentors within the club?
Not so much. Although there were good mentors in the club, but I used to dive with a fellow at Port Stephens, Paul Reardon, quite a lot, and he's an ex-Australian champion, and yeah, I picked up a lot of tips from him.
Cool.
So I used to drive up to Port Stephens on the weekends and dive with Paul a lot. Again, there weren't that many people that used to dive that sort of area in those days, so we'd go to places like Seal Rocks, and there'd be lots of big jewfish and kingfish and snapper and things like that. Good fish to chase, and it was fun diving.
Well, you sound like a fast learner like myself anyway. That's what I put a lot of my success down to. Yeah, so you won your first comp then. How long from then did it take you to take a national title?
Well, the first nationals I ever went in, I think I came fourth. That was at Wollongong. So that was 92, I think. And then I went in a Inter-Pacific competition. So that's just all the 4 people from each country, and all the Pacific nations compete against each other. And fortunately, the first one I went in was at Port Stephens, so I knew that area again quite well. So we won that one fairly convincingly. I think the first nationals I won was in Townsville in 95.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty well the first time to the reef. So didn't know the fish that well.
That's a good effort.
Yeah, but it was quite a good one. But they had everything on the score sheet in those days. So it was humphead Maori wrasse, barramundi cod, and all the good things.
Oh, the greenies love that.
Oh, yeah, no, so it was great.
Yeah.
Geez, those humphead Maori wrasse look like a challenging fish to hit.
They are. They were never easy. I haven't shot lots of them, but yeah, I got a few in that competition, which was good, but not big ones. I never really got any big ones, probably only 50 kilos or so.
Did you say 50 kilos or so?
Yeah, something like that.
That's a pretty big fish,
Yeah.
I've got to say.
Oh.
Holy crap.
So I guess then, could you share with us the story of the first memorable fish that you speared? What species was it? What was the kind of the day like, and who were you diving with?
Oh God, one that I can really remember was one I lost because when I started, it was still stainless steel spears and prangers.
Yep.
So we were still using prangers up until fairly recently. So, yeah, I was a pretty slow learner, swapping over to speed spears. But I shot a marlin. It was probably, at least 150 kilos with a pranger. And I had that on for a while. And that was up at Seal Rocks. And I was diving with 2 mates, and they both had a kingfish on, and then a big marlin came in and went rushing through on the bottom. And black marlin... a lot of the marlin change colours from when they're feeding and when they're swimming. So came through and it was electric blue, and then started swimming to the surface. And I didn't actually pick it as a marlin straight away. Then it went to steel grey as it swam to the top.
Wow.
And then, hit it behind the head with a pranger, and it opened its mouth and shook its head around, and then dragged me off to sea. And but eventually the pranger pulled out. But so that was... quite a memorable one, but unfortunately I struggled a little bit with those big game fish with prangers early in the piece. I lost a couple of marlin over the years, but I've caught a few since.
I don't think that's a fish you'll ever forget. Like shooting a 150 kilo marlin with a pranger, like far out. It's just unbelievable. Wow.
When we first started doing all the blue water, we were still using Pranger. So I got a 83 kilo dogtooth tuna with a Pranger.
A what? Sorry, 83.
83 kilo dogtooth tuna.
With a Pranger. Oh, that's awesome. Far out.
Yeah, there were some big ones running around that day. And, just because we used to use them all the time, we got fairly good at using Prangers. So you just had to get the right shot on a fish, and then you usually landed them.
All right, so what's your favourite hunting technique, your spearfishing hunting technique, Ian, and how do you apply it effectively?
Generally, I'd probably swim into the current. Wherever I'm jumping in, swim into the current, try and find bait. I don't really go in competitions as much anymore. I've got a daughter that just turned 16. I dive with her a lot. And I still swim with Aaron quite a lot. He's 19 now.
Yep.
But I'm training those guys up. So we'll, if we're somewhere on the north coast, you'd jump in the water and then you'd be trying to find a fishy area. Up your way, you'd be looking for where the swordtails are schooling or where there's a bit of bait gathering, and then, trying to find some sort of pelagic coming through.
Cool. So once you've found bait or a school of likely looking fish like swordtails, you just sort of try and get down on the bottom underneath them and be as quiet as possible?
Oh, it depends what you're after. Some fish like snapper, you might have to burley to try and get them in. With Spanish and wahoo, flashes work quite well.
Okay.
It changes with what you're... Around here, we don't... Our selection's not that great, so our kingfish are edible in Sydney, so, they're not that great in Queensland, but, we usually trying to get something like a kingfish.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds like you pretty much adapt your hunting technique depending on what you're sort of chasing at the time or what's around. We've had that advice from guys on the show before. They've said sort of learn one species at a time and get good at hunting them. Is that kind of the way you've approached spearfishing?
Oh, definitely. It's my daughter is struggling trying to get Spanish at the moment, so I've been trying to train her up. So she's really struggling with the techniques, and I probably haven't been giving her enough information. So some of the approaches she's done on them lately when we found them haven't been that great. But, she's getting better, and I'll have to start trying to give her a little bit more information before we get in the water, I think.
Yeah, mate, if she needs any help, she can just go to noobspearo.com. We've got a great selection there of on how to hunt Spanish mackerel, mate. And I think even the podcast we spoke to, who'd we speak to about Spanish?
Oh, Rob Allen and Richard Pillins.
Yeah.
But I was going to say she couldn't be as bad as me. Last time I got out, Ian, I haven't been out for a while, and we were on this likely looking bit of reef, and I had 3 big mackerel swim straight underneath me.
Horses.
And like all around the sort of 20 kilo mark, and I haven't even shot one that big. And I've just dive bombed them like a big steam train, and spooked them all like a rank amateur. It was brilliant.
She's going a little bit better than that. Just down our way, you don't run into them that regularly, so it's more there's much skill in trying to find them as there is in trying to catch one, I think. But, they're a little bit more common up your way.
Yeah, we get spoilt sometimes.
Yeah, she had that same issues a couple of weekends ago. I took my brother-in-law and his son, and she was trying to catch some jewfish, and she found a couple of spots where there were jewies, and my nephew bombed her a couple of times and spooked the whole school, and she wasn't impressed.
It's hard to do sometimes. Like, I mean, there's that feeling you get when you see like big fish, particularly. Like they just make my heart rate go up, and I, like I'm straight away just want one.
Yeah, well, she's quite good with that. So she can do nice dives and got quite a good breath hold, but doesn't help when there's someone bombing you. I actually got in trouble. I was driving the boat for her recently, and she was on the bottom, and I put the motor into gear and spooked the school of Jewish she was trying to approach. So I got a lecture over that as well.
Sounds like you got a bit of a family dynasty going there with your son and daughter, and so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's been fun,
mate. You've been diving for quite a while. Have you got any sort of memorable near misses or sort of scary moments that you've had on the water?
Oh, with sharks, it used to be sort of one a year. Yeah, I've had lots, usually in dirty water. I've had guns eaten by bull sharks and all sorts of things. I don't like white as a colour. I had a gun with a white trigger mechanism, and I had a big bull shark swim past the fish and eat the trigger mechanism of the gun.
Wow.
And I just ended up with a bit of rig cord in my hand, and he swam off with the gun, dragging the fish behind him. Oh, I had a big white eat a kingfish off my spear at Foster.
Can you tell us a bit about that story? Like what?
Yeah, well, there was a spot that it's a marine reserve now, but we used to go to, and fairly deep offshore reef. It's about 26 metres to the top.
Okay.
And it's usually good diving. And this particular day we went there, it was clear, but no fish. And I did a few dives. I was there with two other mates, and I swam down, and one lonely kingfish came through about 15 kilos, and I shot it, and often the other kingfish will come in and school around them. So I left it on the bottom, and then I looked behind me, and there was a really big white coming from behind me.
Oh, wow.
And so I just left the fish on the bottom and just let the rig cord run through my hand as I was swimming back to the top. And I could see my mate on the top, so I just sort of aimed towards him. And then I could see the white circling the bommy. And then when I got to the surface, I couldn't see the white, and I wasn't that far from the boat, and I thought, I could probably still land this fish. So I pulled the fish to the top, and then the white came flying to the surface and inhaled the fish. And so while he was, his jaws were slamming closed on the fish, we bolted, got in the boat.
Wow.
But yeah, that was it was quite a big shark. It was sort of round as a car. So it was probably the largest shark I've ever seen in the water.
How big would you estimate the size of that?
I don't know. It was probably 5 metres long, I suppose. It was quite a big one. And when they get that sort of size, they just get huge girth.
I seen one in Japan the other day. Some guy caught it accidentally, and he was taking it to the museum or something, but they'd stopped at the fish markets to take photos of the thing, and just the sheer girth of them, they're just huge. Like I think, like you say, the girth is more scary than the length.
Yeah, well, I always remember, I was on the bottom and saw it coming towards me, and it was looking a little bit like a nightmare. It was that big.
Did it play on your mind afterwards? Like your next dives, like were you thinking about it?
Well, we did change spots, but no, we jumped in again. We just changed locations.
Today's Veterans Vault is proudly brought to you in partnership with Adreno Spearfishing Supplies. Spearfishing.com.au has a huge range of equipment, from the latest in spear gun technology to the odds and ends that you need, like bungees, booties and budgie smugglers. Head to spearfishing.com.au to read good honest reviews and take advantage of $15 Australia-wide flat shipping and a no-hassles returns policy.
All right, well, this next part of the show is called Veterans Vault. So this is a part of the show where we ask our special guests to take us deep into an area of spearfishing expertise that they'd like to share about. And I've sort of preemptively teed up to chat with you about spearfishing competitions, because you've had such a long and successful time I spent in the sport doing that, I guess. So I guess to start off with, what does sort of like an Australian spearfishing competition look like? What's the format and how does it sort of work?
All right, so with the Aussie titles, they have them in a different state each year. They're run over 3 days. It's a 6-hour comp, so 6 hours in the water. You all start at a central location. Our state titles and the nationals are so it's not a boat comp. So like in New South Wales, they just run them from the shore. So you'd all start at the same rock platform, and you can usually go wherever you want. You just got to swim there. You've got to be back within the 6 hours. When they have them in Queensland, they'll have them on a particular reef. But again, you can pretty well go wherever you want on that reef, but you just got to swim there to get there. And it's a species competition, so, you're trying to get one of each type of fish. So like down this way, be a bream and drummer and, if you're lucky, dewies and kingies, things like that. Okay. We had a national championships in the southern part of New South Wales a few years ago now, and it was a raging current. Had a big marlin swim up to me, and I'd just dropped my rig cord to the bottom. I put a fish head on my rig cord, try and get a red rock cod to come in. So I put a drop weight on, drop the fish head to the bottom, try and get a red rock cod. Look to my left, and there's a marlin's bill about a metre away from me. So I just grabbed the rig cord, clipped my gun on into the centre of the rig cord, spun my gun round, and then it was a marlin's tail about a metre from me. And I only had about an hour to go in the comp, and I thought, bugger, if I shoot this thing, I'll be late for the weigh-in, so I passed it up. It was about 100 kilo black.
Wow.
But, yeah, nice and close to me.
Wow. With the species, so you said you've got to get one of each species, so you're holding off to get the biggest of the species you can, and that's worth more points than just the total number of fish?
No, so the score sheets in the Nationals are 100 points a fish and 10 points a kilo, up to 15 kilos. Okay. So, like, the maximum points you can get for an individual fish is 250 points.
Yep.
A huge fish isn't a big advantage. It's more species.
Yep.
Normally they have a minimum weight, depends on the state, minimum weight of 500 grams. Like in Queensland, it used to be a minimum weight of a kilo. And, it's a bit more complicated in Queensland now. They gut the parrots and things like that, and other fish have got to be certain lengths. But generally that's what it is. So it's more number of species rather than the biggest ones. So, if you've got a bream that that would weigh, you wouldn't bother trying to get another one that's 100 grams bigger. There's no advantage in it.
And what would let's talk tactics here, okay? So you've hit the water, you've got pelagics, you've got some reef species. How do you normally go about it? Do you go, look, I'm going to take this fish, and this fish first, and then work on pelagics later? Or, like, if you could give us a little bit of an idea of how you go about
planning your strategy
and winning 7 Australian titles.
Well, whatever location you're in, it's usually similar. The points that stick out the furthest are normally the best. So a little bit of fitness helps. So you'd have a game plan, whether you're going left or right, and swim to a few of the points, and you might end up quite a distance away. I've probably swum 5 or 6 kilometres in these comps to get to a particular point. So you might freestyle for, an hour to get to a particular area and before you start diving. And, it'll be the point that sticks out the furthest and has all the pelagics and everything on it. And, you might only get an hour or two just diving, and then you've got to start freestyling back, dragging all your fish behind you. But, getting away from the crowd.
Yeah.
Look, the fitness helps. So, I was diving beside another ex-Aussie champion once before in South Australia, and he had an amazing breath hold, but took him forever to recover.
Yep.
So he could stay down forever and shoot a fish, but then it'd take him 5 minutes to do another dive, and I would have shot 5 or 6 fish in that time. So I sort of buggered his day up.
So what you're getting at here is the fitness to cover more ground and
cover more ground and also recovery.
Recovery, yeah.
Okay.
So if you can, if you're diving in a group and you can just come up, take a breath, dive back down, it certainly helps.
I was going to ask you, what are some of the crucial personal traits someone would have to be a successful diver? So I guess you've just identified fitness. What's the fastest way to develop fitness for competition diving? Is it underwater hockey?
Oh, no, I was never that keen on underwater hockey. Diving in comps always helps, or just any diving. We do it's a bit different in Queensland where you guys, a lot of your diving's boat diving. A lot of our diving down here is from the shore.
Yeah.
So, you still might swim a couple of kilometres to get to a location you're hoping to get a fish at and then swim back. So it all just plays in with it. And, it's like anything. The more you go, the more luck you have.
So what's some of the differences between the Australian and maybe New Zealand comps and some of the other competitions? I mean, you've represented Australia for 20 years and some of the different comps I've had over the world. What are some of the different formats and what are the pros and cons?
Oh, the World Championships are a nightmare. So we're the poor cousins. So like the European, Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, all are professionally sponsored spearfishermen.
Yep.
So they'll have an entourage of 20 people, and they don't even have to do their own scouting. So they'll have their own boats and have guys finding fish for them. And in Europe, you might, or one of the ones I went to in Spain, like the best catch was, like 8 eels and some other scatty little fish. And, the water will go from 18 degrees to 11 overnight.
Wow.
They've got quite variable conditions. That was in on the Atlantic coast.
Yeah.
But they shoot all these horrible little fish, but they put a lot of time in scouting, finding where all these horrible eels and things are, and we turn up and all sharing some little tiny apartment and all chipping in to rent one boat we're all diving out of, and all those guys have got their own big boats zooming around. So it's hard to compete against it when you don't really have the finances.
And you're paying foreigner tax on everything.
Pretty well.
Like the comp system, what would you like to see changed in the comp system in terms of how do you think a comp like bag limits or like what changes could you see that you think would improve it or make it more fun or really help the cream rise to the top, I guess?
Oh, God. I came from, when I was younger, I used to go in line fishing competitions, and they were just mass slaughter, really, because it was total weight. So, they'd catch lots of tailor and lots of brim and lots of dewies and all that to win the competition. And even in those days, the spearfishing comps, the one of each type, certainly more selective. And, you'll go to one area and you'll get a certain type of fish, and then you've got to move to get, something else. I don't know if they need that much change where, it's only the fish that probably less desirable. They could probably come off the score sheets.
Yeah.
But generally, they're quite well run. We try and use all the fish that we take. But generally, the Aussie comps are pretty good. And so when they had the recent nationals in Lucinda, in like north of Townsville, they organised for everyone to, you could keep some of the fish if you wanted to for your personal consumption. But they were donating to the local community, and so at the end of the comp, they were getting all the divers to fill up the fish, and they were bagging them up, and then they had one of the donating it to the poor or something, and they had one of the community groups coming and picking up all the fish fillets and distributing them. So they were pretty well organised up there. That was Max Hayes. He was the convener up there, and he did a good job and was well organised. You tend to find quite a few of the comps have a similar format now. If they're looking like they're going to get quite a lot of fish, they usually try and tie it in with a charity.
Also, what comp or what result are you most proud of, Ian?
Oh, winning the Kiwi one was good fun. It was, because they're always pretty small spearfishing community in New Zealand, the competition side of it, but they're usually really good divers. A lot of them dive commercially for a living, catching either kinner or power, and they so all their commercial diving over there is done on snorkel, so they're all practicing every day.
So what year did you win the Kiwi comp?
2007.
Oh, well, so it's fairly recent.
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, okay.
And then I did dive in one since, but I dived with an old Kiwi mate. He's about 70.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the last one I went in. So it was a little bit more challenging because he wasn't as keen to swim so far.
No, being 70, I wouldn't want to swim very far either. So good on him for getting in and getting amongst it.
He's still pretty competitive, but the swimming side of it held us up a little bit.
I don't like it at 30. I just get in behind Shrek because he's a big man. I just get straight in behind his slipstream mate and go. It's actually one of my little secrets.
That always helps.
Yeah.
What was that guy's name? The 70-year-old fella.
John Ross.
We have actually. I seen him in a video the other day. That was why I asked. He was on a recent like a TV show. They sort of did a summary of the last comp over there, and John Ross was still competing. I seen him in the film, so good on him.
Yeah, no, he's a good fella. He's a good mate of Darren Shields. So he wanted to go in one, and he used to dive with another partner he dived with. Their competitions are a pairs comp, because they had a lot of issues with shallow water blackout. So they have one up, one down, like our Inter-Pacific competitions.
Okay.
So one guy stays with the float while the other one's on the bottom, and then you swap over. So you come up, give him the speed rig, and you hang on to the float, and then he dives. And that was the way they stopped losing divers, having it, swimming in pairs, and then if the other one doesn't come up, you got the rig cord attached to him, and you can't find him.
Yeah, cool.
That's a sensible idea. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, there's been a bit of a push to push the Australian comps that way, but definitely you guys should, in Queensland where you're diving a little bit deeper, it certainly helps swimming in pairs like that.
Yeah, cool.
So in our Inter-Pacific competitions, originally they were individual comps as well, and they had a few people die in those as well. So they changed those to a pairs comp. So they've got a 5 metre piece of rope attached to the float. So one diver's got to hang on to that the whole time. And before you dive, the other one comes up, gives you the speed rig, and then you swap. But yeah, it's good. You know, I dived in the Pacifics on the Barrier Reef a few years ago with one of your Queensland fellas, Ben Thompson, and I had a shark about to bite through his fish in his hands, and I was right beside him and was able to fend it off. I bent my spear and killed it stone dead, but
it sounds like you fended it off very aggressively.
Yeah, I fended it off fairly successfully. So I just hit it in the sweet spot, but it stopped it biting him anyway.
Yeah, nice. Right. Nice. Ben Thompson's on Sunshine Coast, isn't he? He's a bloody good diver, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a good fella. I mean, he beat me in the last Nationals in Sydney.
Yeah, right.
By about 0.5%.
Oh.
So yeah, I should have lifted my game.
What when you're doing these pairs comps, the points, are they tallied together as a pair, or is it still individual fish, or what's the story?
No, just tallied together. So the one I went in New Zealand, I just had a mate come and tow the float for me. So, you know, one person can shoot all the fish. So it doesn't matter who gets them.
All right, and his name still goes down on the sheet. So if you win together, yep.
Yeah, so he's your pair. But we had to, you know, in that particular one, you had to cover a lot of ground. It was over there were 3 islands fairly close together. So we swam all of them, and you know, you had to dive a little. You know, in New Zealand, there's not as many species, so some of it's a little bit deeper and some's fairly shallow. So yeah, you had to cover all the ground to get all the different types of fish.
Okay.
You know, boarfish and the kahawai and things like that, and the salmon you get in the whitewater. Yeah, all those sorts of things.
So it is a bit of a tactic to basically just get a sheepdog to swim the surface for you. Like
pretty well.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Because I just imagine if Shrek and I went out, there'd be just blow-ups, mate. If
I'd end up shooting him, I reckon, and trying to weigh him in.
Holy moly.
Well, you know, it's always part of it. It's a bit like that in the Pacific. You got to try and get someone you kind of get along with.
Yeah.
But
So I was going to say, it looks like Aaron's he's a bit of a chip off the old block, and it sounds like your daughter might be as well. Do you see both of them competing like you have, for so long and so successfully?
Well, at the moment, Aaron still really enjoys it. Yeah, and he's been going in the Nationals. Lara's still building up to it. She doesn't really go in the comps yet, but she's been shooting lots of good fish. We went up the north coast of New South Wales a couple of weekends ago, and she got a few nice jewfish, and yeah, she really enjoys it. So yeah, eventually she's both of them. Aaron's at uni, so uni often dictates whether or not he can go into certain competitions. That's why he couldn't go in the Indo-Pacifics this year in New Zealand, and she's she's in year 11, so building up to the HSC. So again, school will dictate whether or not they can go to different things. So yeah, we'll wait and see. They both enjoy it. So, they'll probably go in competitions, I'm sure.
That's awesome. Mate, sorry to jump all over the place, mate, but one question I really did want to ask you. Guys are getting into comp diving. What are some must-have gear? Like, in terms of, I mean, obviously doing big swims, it's exhausting. How have you tweaked, or what sort of specialised gear, or what would you choose in terms of your whole setup? Or what stands out to you for good gear for comp diving?
It certainly depends on what state you're in. Like when you're diving in Victoria, they're shooting, little tiny postage stamp fish, and it's filthy dirty and freezing cold. So,
sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, you use a tiny little gun and probably a Pranger, and then as you go further north, like you guys, probably just a gun a gun you use all the time is the best one to use. Like I use just a 1300 all the time, even in New South Wales. And then if you run into a marlin, you can still land a marlin. And if you need to shoot fish under rocks, it can get a little bit more challenging. So I put my hand under the gun and squeeze the rubbers to choke the rubbers to take the power out of it, so you don't damage the spear if you've got to try and shoot something under a rock.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a few little tricks to it, but it's just using a gun that you're happy to use all the time. So yeah, I just have a 1300, pretty basic single rubber, so it's quick to reload, and I'm fairly confident where I'm going to put the shot. Generally, it goes like I got a 150 kilo black marlin on a dive off Sydney at Longreef a couple of years ago. I shot a kingfish, came in to eat the kingfish, and chased it for a while, and it turned, and the head was too far away to have a shot at its head. So I ended up shooting it in the butt. And, you know, it was still a fair way away. So it dragged me out to sea. I had a boat boy, so I called over to him and he picked up the other diver, and then they just drove alongside me and filmed me and gave me a hard time while I was getting dragged underwater. And it sort of dragged me a couple of miles out to sea. And then when I caught up to it, you could still see the flopper just sitting under the skin. Oh. So, that was a gun that I was used all the time, and, you know, I was fairly confident. As soon as it was within range, or some part of it was in range, I could have a decent shot and land it.
All right, so moving on. Ian, what is the funniest thing you've experienced out spearfishing?
I did find $100,000 worth of casino chips a few years ago at Bondi. Wow. And so I went for a dive one afternoon, found all these casino chips, and I read in the paper that there were these illegal or these counterfeit 500s floating around, and the Crown Casino had stopped using them. So I turned up to the police station, and I'm trying to convince the police guy just to give me a receipt for, you know, $50,000 worth of casino chips. And he's gone, just go and spend them. And I've gone, look, fairly sure they're counterfeit. You know, just give me a receipt. If they're not, I'll collect them in a couple of weeks. And then the following day I had to go out with the water police. And these water police said, look, you know, it's a crime scene. We just want you to show us where the casino chips were, and then bugger off. And I've gone, fair enough. And then, you know, they're putting all this scuba gear on. And I've gone, look, guys, you know, it's a little bit rougher today than it was yesterday. You might be better off without your scuba gear. And they said, look, we do this for a living. And I've gone, yeah, fair enough. And so I've jumped in the water and I've got to the right location, and I'm just waiting there, and then these two coppers with all their gear have turned up, and then this huge waves come, and I've gone down, held onto the bottom, looked up, both cops are gone. They're tangled up in the rocks on the cliff face. And so for about the next hour, they're trying to rescue these two cops, and then so they've called me back to the boat, and they've gone, how about you get them for us? And I've gone, yeah, rightio. I said, look, I just want to get out of jail free card, and I'll collect all your booty for you. And they've gone, oh, if you've got trouble with the police, we can't help you. And I've gone, look, I don't have trouble with the police. I said, I just want a free pass next time I get pulled over for speeding or something. And they're going, oh, you're after some sort of reward. We can't give you a reward. Talk to the casino. And so, yeah, they didn't play ball, but I ended up catching all their casino chips for them and sent them on their way.
I would have just charged them for a full day commercial diving. Send them an invoice.
I probably should have, but they didn't have much humour at that stage, so
Sydney
I gave up.
Yeah. All right, cool. That's a pretty good, funny story, Ian. Pucko, so what's in your dive bag? Head to toe, what equipment are you wearing right now in your day-to-day spearfishing?
All right. So the kids and I get sponsored by Torelli, so we're just using Torelli. We use Torelli gear.
Okay.
I still use penetrator fins, so I've just got the soft carbon penetrator fins, which I like.
Yep.
Yeah, I use a 1300 gun. Depending on the time of year, you know, you swap with wetsuits because our water temperature varies a lot more than you guys. You know, it's warm at the moment, so I'll sort of wear 3 mil top, 1.5 mil pants, or even lycra. And then, you know, as it gets cooler, I'll put more rubber on. So, you know, by the time it's middle of winter, you'll be wearing a 5 mil wetsuit.
Okay. Is your daughter's in a Torelli suit? I've heard from other women that they are very good suits for women. What are they like for blokes as well? Are they comfortable?
Sure. You know, I'm very happy with them. They're you know, you can get away with the 3 mil suit in most areas, and yeah, they've been good. Yeah, cool. They're comfortable to wear. So I know a lot of the Queensland guys are now trying to use gun rails and things like that, which I hate. So I use a rig cord and a float with a flag because we've had a few incidents in Sydney with divers getting run over by boats, so it's always good to have a float with a flag.
Yep. You
know, probably a 25-metre rig cord because generally we wouldn't be diving any deeper than that. We use speed rigs, so, you know, and I just have one wrap of fishing line on my single rubber, one wrap of fishing line.
Okay.
Probably about 350 mil of lead on the spear between the end of the gun and the tip of the spear.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it.
Sounds pretty similar to what Turbo and I are using. We still use float line most of the time, and
get them tangled up together and have blow ups. It's always good.
Yeah, but it's I think it's a lot better method. Like, you always know where your other diver is, and it's pretty scary, all these guys with reels and,
We're starting to see a few innovations with it now, Ian, where guys are getting onto the fact they need to have a float and flag, but quite often that'll be a smaller float with a flasher on it, and two guys with reel guns will share it. But there are it's not something we ever recommend to guys, particularly when they're starting out, to ever use a reel, or even in your first couple of years, because it's just a complication, isn't it?
Oh, reels are a pain in the ass, and every time you fly, you've got to adjust them. And I do have a reel, but I wear one on my belt. So, if you've got to go into whitewater and shoot a dewey, you can drop your rig and then clip onto your belt reel. If you're desperate, you can use that. Sometimes I use it for snapper. Okay. So I'll anchor my rig and then burley, and then trying to, sometimes the rig cord can spook the snapper. But other than that, we always have a rig cord attached, and I'd never really want the kids to swing without one. So, if you're boating, you know where all your divers are. And, not a fan of gun reels at all.
Making the switch from plastic freediving fins to a carbon or composite freediving blade makes a huge difference. You don't feel like you're finning through mud anymore. Fatigue and soreness in the ankles goes away. Penetrator blades are lighter and more reactive, and they've improved my diving, and I'm sure they're going to improve yours.
Check out the custom Noob Spearo Octopus Edition at noobspearo.com. Or for the full range of penetrator fins, head over to penetratorfins.com.
All right, so next section of the show is called Fast 5 Facts for Noobs. It's basically 5 short, sharp pieces of advice that you would have liked when you were starting out, or 5 pieces of advice that you'd give to young guys and girls that are just starting the sport now, that have just helped them sort of get going.
All right. Don't wear too much weight.
Yep.
Definitely have a float with a flag.
Do, yep.
Don't have to dive particularly deep to get good fish. Probably try and dive with a partner. Yep. So, if you do get in a bad situation, you've got someone to give you a hand. Yeah, just be aware of your entry and exit points. So down here, we've got a lot of cliff faces, so some of the spots you can get in, but you can't get back out. So, and if the swell picks up, it can get a bit nasty. Yeah. So, just trying to work out a contingency plan where you can get out if it gets a bit rough.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I've got don't wear too much weight. 2, always use a floating flag, because then boaties can see you and other boat traffic will be aware of you and hopefully won't run you down. Number 3, don't dive too deep, because you can get good fish in the shallow, or most of the time anyway. And 4, try and always have a buddy. Number 5, be aware of entry and exit points, because as you identified, like, the swell picks up and you're in trouble if you kind of don't have a plan. So that's pretty good.
That's
cool.
Awesome. That was one of the fastest Fast 5 facts. I can't believe you just rattled them off like that. That's good. Normally we do a couple of takes, so no, it's really good.
So you're quite involved with the Sanssouci dolphins down there. If there's people starting out spearfishing in Sydney area, you recommend them getting involved in a club?
Certainly helps, and certainly helps with the learning curve.
Okay.
Just going along to the competitions, and you see the different types of fish, even the equipment people are using and areas they're diving. So, certainly speeds up the learning process.
Cool. All right. We've interviewed Simon Tripp before, and he's talked a little bit about your club, so we're well aware you've got a pretty good culture down there. So, but look, is there anything else, any message you'd want to give to our listeners?
Oh, no, just enjoy it. Be aware of what you spear. So, it's not good to be wasteful. So try and consume, if you're going to shoot something, eat it. Even if they're a bit crappy, and then you know not to shoot it again. It's just good to try and consume what you eat. Because I suppose everyone's watching what we do these days, and, all the lesbian vegetarians want to ban it. And so we've got to be mindful of our image with other people.
Yep. So be social media conscious and eat what you catch. It's a pretty good parting bit of guidance. Yeah. So if people want to check out a bit more about you, Ian, can they do that anywhere? You'd be all over social media, I'd imagine.
Yeah, somewhat. Probably Google.
Okay. No worries.
There's lots of pictures and things there.
Cool. Well, we'll have a full write-up about you on our website, and people can come in and see some of the photos of the fish you've shot and learn a bit more about you. So thanks a lot for coming on the show, and it's been really good talking to you.
All right, buddy. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks for listening today, guys. The Pucko interview was an absolute cracker. I think if you want to get good at spearfishing, join a club. If you want to be awesome, then start doing competitions. And I got heaps out of that. So next week we cover off 101 beginner setup according to the Gospel of Turbo.
Yep, that's right. The 15-metre float line apprenticeship, as coined by prominent New Zealand Spearo,
Luke
Potts. All right, stay tuned for that one.
Thanks for listening to today's show. Make sure to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And to learn more about becoming a better Spearo, visit us at noobspearo.com and subscribe to our newsletter.